organization called Family Courts Reform USA. And I got to tell you, I'm so glad he had an organization because what he does is so near and dear to my heart. And so he's going to present what they do, why they do it, and maybe recruit some help. Who knows?
All right, sounds good.
10 minutes.
All right, well, first of all, I want to thank you, Sandy, for giving me this opportunity and everyone else for giving me the opportunity to speak right now. That gentleman is a tough act to follow. There was actually a lot of parallels in what your organization is doing, that's very similar to what we're doing, so I'd definitely like to chat with you about what you're working on. Family Court Reform USA. So who are we? First of all, we're a national organization. We're a 501c4. I primarily do what would be considered lobbying, going in and talking with legislators about different issues. We started off as a social media movement, and we've got about 10,000 followers. We have 52 social media pages, and we've got an active presence in about 20 different states. Now, we also collaborate with leaders and other organizations across the country, and we have an outreach. We're reaching about 15 million people every single week. So there's a lot of organizations that are very concerned about the family court system, the impact on parents. Okay, so our mission ultimately is to uphold the fundamental rights of parents. We want to reduce the adversarial processes and conflicts in family court, and we want to encourage shared, equal, and cooperative co-parenting. Okay, so what's the problem? A lot of people don't really understand if you've never been through a dissolution, you've never been through a child custody case or hearing, a lot of people think, well, the family courts are fine. There aren't really that many issues. Well, I'm here to tell you that's not the case. There are a lot of social issues. We all know about the social issues in our country. 70 to 80% of crime, drugs, incarceration, mental health problems, the suicide rate, teen pregnancies, all of these things tie back to single-parent homes. And the courts have a paradigm where they're essentially encouraging single-parent homes to exist. They don't encourage this cooperative co-parenting. They don't encourage 50-50 custody. If there's any conflict between the parents, if two parents don't agree, the courts are essentially, they create this paradigm where one person becomes the primary parent, the other person becomes the non-custodial parent, and then that puts the two parents in conflict. When you're going through a dissolution, or a child custody case, those two people aren't together anymore. So a lot of times, it's natural for them not to agree on things. And the courts, the only thing that they really encourage is litigation. Some people will say, okay, well, you can go to mediation, or you can go to this, or you can go to that. Ultimately, the courts encourage one parent's going to come out kind of ahead with all the rights and responsibilities for the children. The other parent is going to come out as the non-custodial parent or the visitor. What we found is through, there have been a number of different organizations that have done studies. There's an International Commission on Shared Parenting. They met twice in Germany in 2014 and 2015. They got experts from all around the world, child development experts, psychologists, attorneys, people that are involved in this system. They looked at 122 different studies over the last 20 years, and they determined in a consensus that it's in the best interest of children to have equal access to both parents. So that's really, that's the core of our issue and the things that we're working to combat, because we want what's in the best interest of our children. We want to be active parents in our children's lives, and if the court systems aren't encouraging that, we need to step up and do something about it. We need to change that. The state of Washington knows about these problems. They did a study back in 1998. They looked at all these problems that the court system has, and the same things that I'm hearing now when I talk to parents in Washington are the exact same things that were happening almost 20 years ago when they did a study. So sometimes I'll meet with a legislator and they'll tell me, oh, well, we need to do a 10-year study and find out what's going on. No, we did that 20 years ago. So we already know. We know that the problems haven't changed. It's the same type of issues, and the solution is the courts need to stop promoting litigation and conflict and start promoting cooperative parenting. So the solution to that, let's make the laws catch up with what we already know is the solution. And that's actually one of the things that my organization has been working on. We just dropped a bill yesterday. We've got 9 different sponsors on it so far, and it's a parental equality bill. And what it does is it establishes, it doesn't take any power away from the courts to decide if there's a parent that's unfit in some way. It doesn't force a 50-50 arrangement, but it creates the presumption that it is in the best interest of children to have equal access and both parents to have equal rights and responsibilities. So,
Give a bill.
it just dropped yesterday, so it should be in the system by Monday morning, but I'll get your contact info and I'll get that to you.
Awesome.
We're working with a number of organizations already. This international commission is working with the National Parents Organization. They have a big seminar that they do every year. In fact, I'm going to the one in Boston this year, and there's a lot of experts, a lot of different people I'm going to meet that are very, very active in these issues. A lot of times it's much bigger organizations that do this work, but there aren't many in Washington State that are working on this right now. So I took the lead and dropped a bill, got support from legislators. Yes, sir.
How do you handle the conflict that fathers do not have equal rights as mothers?
Well, that's essentially what we're addressing. So the bill puts parents on equal foot. It says that the kids essentially, it's in their best interest to have an equal relationship with both parents. And it's essentially, if a parent is alleging that the father or the mother is unfit in some way, that the burden is on them to establish through clear and convincing evidence that there's a reason why that person shouldn't be in the children's life. Right now, the paradigm is that one parent is the primary, the other is the non-custodial. So they always tend to lean towards giving about 70-75% of the time to one parent, and then the other parent becomes a visitor. So we put it on equal
The reason I'm
footing.
asking is because I did child custody investigations for 15 years.
Okay.
At the end of that 15 years, it wasn't any better than when we started.
Right. Well, and I believe they tried to address these problems many times, and because of the way that the system is set up, because one parent always comes out as the primary, has far more rights and responsibilities for the children than the other parent, then it creates a system of conflict. If they don't automatically agree that that's what's best for their children, if you've got another parent that's saying, look, I'm a great parent, I want to be in my child's life too, you may have 2 parents that both want to be in that child's life. But when the court says, okay, well, one parent has to be primary, the other's going to be a visitor, and there's such a system of inequality there, it automatically creates conflict and encourages that. It encourages the parents to tear each other down, to make false accusations, to bring up all sorts of things, instead of encouraging those 2 parents to cooperate together, to work out any differences they have. It brings out the absolute worst in parents, because they're basically trying to drag each other down because they both want to be the primary parent. And the solution is put them both on equal footing. And then it takes away that incentive for conflict. It says, okay, well, parents, you're equal in this. You need to decide what's in the best interest of your children. If the 2 parents get together and they say, hey, I work a lot, I want to see my kids, but I only need to see them, a certain percentage of the time, the parents can work that out amongst themselves. But it's determining what's really in the best interest of children. And if they disagree,
Well, they can't if somebody forces them to.
Right. Well, that doesn't always work, because then what happens is, so say one parent violates the parenting plan in some way. The only recourse, once again, is conflict. You take that parent into court for contempt. And that creates another conflict, because now the 2 parents are fighting again. So if there is a problem, it's always addressed with this paradigm of conflict and litigation. There's, they say, oh, well, you can go and get mediation. You can go and have a third party. I've tried some of that. If my ex-wife doesn't want to cooperate, she doesn't want to cooperate. And there's nothing there to really force her to do that, mostly because she's the primary parent. And that's the paradigm that the law encourages. So we want both parents to have essentially equal rights and responsibilities for their children. And that's the core of our.
Who's the prime on that bill?
Larry Haler.
This has been done in other states?
It has been done to to different degrees in other states. So our bill is actually based on something that just passed in Missouri last year, and it's also based on another bill that we put forward here in Washington in 2015 that didn't originally pass. So it's kind of the combination of two different bills. There are other states that have been implementing different levels of what they sometimes call shared parenting, sometimes they call parental equality, but Arizona is really the only state that has a true 50-50 arrangement, and their laws are very different from ours. But Alaska, South Dakota, Missouri, and Utah have all just recently passed similar laws. And Florida passed one, but their governor wouldn't sign off on it. So it passed through the House and the Senate, but then when it got to the governor vetoed it. So,
Fabulous. Go ahead.
let me just put out a couple more points. I don't want to take up too much time, but we're working on the parental equality bill that just dropped yesterday. Something else that we want to do is a data collection and reporting bill, because we want to be able to track, what happens. If we change this law, we want to be able to get as much data as possible about what is the court's reaction to it, how are different factors impacted by that new law, and be able to trace that over time and make adjustments if necessary. So we're essentially asking for an expansion of some data collection that they already do. Another big issue for me, I'm a veteran. We want some veterans protection in family court, because sometimes, veterans they're impacted in some way by their service, whether it's through an injury, or whether it's through their deployment cycle, or whether it's through their training cycle, or just maybe not being able to move out of state because of their assignment. A lot of times these are things that impact their ability to be an equal parent in their children's life. So a couple years down the road, if they get, if they're in a different situation, they go to a different unit, we want the courts to be able to recognize that and see that the only reason why they may not have got the arrangement that they wanted originally was due to their service. So we've got a bunch of different projects that we're working on. I've got a website. We collect demographic data. We collect the district that people are in. We let them self-affiliate with what party they're with. We do polls. We have all sorts of different ways of collecting data together. So when I go to meet with a legislator, I can tell you, this is how many people have signed up on my website. This is, the party that they're representing. This is how many people support this particular issue. These are the type of issues that are important to them. So it's the type of data collection that legislators really need in order to be able to, know what decisions to make. We're working on email petitions that are going to go out to local legislators. So if somebody wants to contact their legislator about an issue, doesn't know how to do it, they'll be able to put in their district, hit a button, it'll send an email out, and that allows legislators to easily track what people are really concerned with, particularly when it comes to family court reform. I wrote a petition to Congress about a year ago, got 12,000 letters sent to Congress. So, on the federal level, there's a lot of issues too that I haven't even brought up today, but there's a lot of stuff that's being worked on the federal level as well. And our goal is legislation and to organize support for these very, very important issues for our families and our children.
Thank you. I don't remember him saying the numbers, but I'll tell you how extreme it is. The custodial parent has, full-time basically. The visiting parent, what a terrible way to put it, sees those kids 6 days out of the month, and 2 of those days are evenings only. That is how unfair that is. So it's pretty extreme.